बाबर साहब, हमने जबरी गुमशुदगी, मावराए अदालत कत्ल, आर्बिट्री डिटेंशन, ये मसाइल तो पाकिस्तान में कई दिहाइयों से हैं और पाकिस्तान जो है, पाकिस्तान को सिक्योरिटी चैलेंजेस का सामना है। हम सुनते आ रहे हैं कि हालात जो हैं वो हम हालत जंग में हैं, एक्सेप्शनल times call for exceptional measures, and this idea of sort of creating an island of exceptionalism on something as important as fundamental liberty or right to life is something that we've now seen for decades. I mean, you would know more. And what you have struggled for this for decades as well, including attempts at legislative change, because I think we sort of to have the benefit of you as somebody who's been a member of parliament for as long as you have been. Why have we failed? Why have we failed both at the legislative level on both enforced disappearances and arbitrary detention, but also at the implementation level?
Thank you very much. Honorable members of Presidium, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, आपने दुरुस्त कहा कि enforced disappearances, extrajudicial killings has been with us for the last several decades. It has been with us for the last several decades, but it was institutionalized during the days of Musharraf. And General Musharraf has himself acknowledged in his book, In the Line of Fire, और वो कहते हैं on page 237, he is on record to have said that those who say that we have not done enough in the war on terror, they should ask the CIA how many millions of dollars they have given to us for handing them over the people of Pakistan. Since no action was taken against Musharraf for this confession of extrajudicial transfer of people to the CIA, including extrajudicial killings. That is why, since then, it has been institutionalized, unfortunately, for the last now 20 years. And when I say it is institutionalized, I also say that the state agencies are involved. Let us not mince words. रियासत के इदारे मुलव्वस हैं. How? On the 28th of July 2018, we called the chairman of the Enforced Disappearances Commission to the Senate. And he was asked many questions, and we asked him, sir, your law under which the commission has been set up, it also requires you to prosecute and investigate those who are involved in this. And now you have been the chairman for the last several years. Have you been able to find as to who were the abductors? He said that whenever we ask the people who abducted you, they say कि जी बस छोड़ दें, बस हम रिहा होकर आ गए हैं. We said, Mr. Chairman, but did it not occur to you that isn't that a very surprising statement by every person who has been abducted कि जी बस छोड़ दें? You should have come to the parliament and said this is a serious problem. And then he conceded. And it is recorded in the minutes of the meeting of that day, and that is why I'm talking about this. It is not a state secret. Any one of you can go and ask for a copy of the minutes. And that was a meeting not in camera. It was open to the media. It is a different matter that the media did not carry the proceedings the next day. But the media was present. लेकिन किसी ने report नहीं किया. And he stated, when he was pressed hard and harder, उसने कहा कि 153 army personnel have been identified and action is being taken against them. That was 28th July 2018. 28th July 2021 has come and passed. No action has been taken. Therefore, I say that the state agencies are involved. And do you recall that the ISPR also made a statement in July 2019 Now, this is a statement of the ISPR, no secret. And they say, not all missing persons are in the custody of the army. Therefore, meaning thereby कि हाँ कुछ हमारे पास हैं, कम हैं या ज़्यादा हैं. They are in their custody, it's admitted by the ISPR. And it is also a fact that when Akhtar Mangal threatened to quit the alliance unless the missing persons were released from Balochistan, of which he had given a list, and he threatened that he will not vote for the budget, his demand was accepted. 48 people were released, and then he voted for the government in the budget. Who released them? Who accepted his demand? So my second point was that the state agencies are involved. The third point I want to make is that the Commission on Enforced Disappearances has failed. It has failed because it was required to investigate and prosecute those involved in it. It has not been able to investigate even one person, let alone prosecute them. It claims to have secured the release of 3,800 people. Not in one case has it been able to investigate and prosecute, the complete impunity of the crime. And you also said, why have we failed? And this is my last point. But look at the way how serious the matter is. The Senate Human Rights Committee asked the government of Balochistan कि हमें list दे दो. The mutilated bodies are found on the roadside. How many of them in the last 2 years? Pat came the reply, 53. He said, all right. Has any FIR been registered? No. Why no FIR? Because the relatives did not want. Imagine the disconnect between the citizen and the state is so serious कि अपने mutilated bodies का जो है वो FIR दर्ज नहीं करते, कहते हैं कि इन पर एतबार नहीं है. So this is the seriousness of the problem. Now, why it is happening? No matter आप कोई भी कानून बना दो, already in the PPC, enforced kidnapping is a crime, but it is not being implemented. More than 7,000 cases of enforced disappearances have been registered, but it is not being investigated, not in one case. Why? Because there is elephant in the room, and the elephant in the room does not permit, because they are the agencies, the official agencies are involved, and they do not permit. And the solution of the enforced disappearances, in my view, is we must have a law to bring the ISI and other intelligence agencies under some legislation. And I'm happy to inform you that in 2015, the Senate of Pakistan unanimously made recommendations, including a bill to bring ISI under the law. 6 साल हो गए, दिसंबर 2015, दिसंबर 2021, 6 साल हो गए. Under the rules of business, the government had to come back to the parliament to accept that or to say, हम नहीं कर सकते, these are the reasons. Neither the government has come back accepting that legislation, nor the government has come back to the parliament to say कि हम इन वजूहात की बिना पे नहीं कर सके, because the elephant in the room does not permit. So मैं आपसे कहूँगा कि the reason is the elephant in the room that must be pushed out, and that can be pushed out when people like you may cross the political divide, the civil society, when people like you raise voice as you are doing it today. Thank you very much.
One thing that has come up, and throughout this discussion on arbitrary detention, enforced disappearances, and extrajudicial killing, is a consensus, and segue from what Michael is saying, that the criminal justice system in Pakistan is broken and dysfunctional. And when we talked about enforced disappearances, or we talked about extrajudicial killings, to my mind, the idea that we can treat this in isolation with the rest of the criminal justice system. It's problems that you mentioned, the problems of delay, of the courts being sort of overburdened, is you can't probably create an island out of solving the problem of enforced disappearance up to the point that you have a criminal justice system that is efficient, transparent, equitable, at least at some level. And Babar Sahab, in terms of criminal justice system reform, the larger conversation of a criminal justice system, which all three levels, the level of investigation, the police, the level of prosecution, the government, and level of adjudication, the courts. What can be sort of, in your long experience as a parliamentarian, and I know it's sort of very difficult to ask for recommendations there, but we're running out of time. So what would be key items? Because up to the point that we raise the floor of the criminal justice system, we'll not be able to surgically solve the problem of enforced disappearances if courts are being dysfunctional. So what, in your opinion, could be some top-line recommendations of making this entire criminal justice system more functionable, more equitable, more
Well,
efficient?
as a matter of fact, we need massive judicial reforms. The criminal justice system of Pakistan is broken, and just to give you an example, two brothers were sentenced to death. They spent years on the death row, and finally, when the Supreme Court acquitted them and the order went to the jail, it transpired that they had already been hanged. So in a country where the justice system is so broken, therefore we need to have massive judicial reforms, number one. Now what those two important judicial reforms can be, of course the judiciary at the lower level requires a number of reforms, but the judiciary at the top level also needs reforms. And two areas in which there is a need for judicial reforms are, number one, the appointment of judges, and number two, the suo motu powers of the judges. Remember, the judges are unique position that they adjudicate between the state institutions. They determine the constitutional parameters of the powers of each state institution. And when the judiciary interprets the constitution and the law in a manner that increases only the powers of the Supreme Court and not the powers of other democratic institutions, I think that is a fundamental flaw in the judicial system. And it is an awesome power. It is an awesome power when you sit on the podium to decide about various state institutions and the extent of their empowerment. And when you sit in judgment and seem to be empowering yourself and disempowering other state institutions, I think it's an awesome power. And when the power is awesome, it requires checks and balances. So that is one thing that we need to have. And secondly, also, I think that the appointment of judges. We have seen that through judicial verdicts, the Prime Minister has no role, the President has no role, the Parliament has no role. Now, the nominations are made by the Honorable Chief Justice, and the recommendation final is made by a committee which is dominated by the Honorable Judges. So unfortunately, it invites the criticism that it becomes a judiciary of the judges, for the judges, by the judges. And therefore, this impression must be dispelled. And finally, I would like to say that no matter what laws you make, the Parliament is criticized. The Parliament should not be over-criticized because the Parliament has made laws, but the trouble is when the law is not implemented. If the Parliament has made the law to bring the ISI under legislation, and if the executive does not concur with that does not come back to the parliament, I think the parliament should not be held responsible. The parliament made a law in 2013 that proscribed, banned militant organizations will not be allowed to resurrect under different names. But what happened? Jaish-e-Mohammed was banned, but the state went to China, requested China to stop the move in the United Nations to take action against Maulana Masood Azhar. So when the parliament makes the law and the executive flouts that law, there is nothing that you can do unless we have massive judicial reform. Thank you very much.